since we use 12. You see, the doubling would be of 20,000. Oh, sorry, I have to put 24. Make a difference there earlier on. Alright, good. So the money would be doubled for the school if they allow me to go an extra 2 months in paying off the loan, or the money will not even double to the school. The school already get paid for at the amount 24,750 by the credit agency that perhaps write them a check. Alright, but the credit agency that gives them the loan, which pays them for me, then I would have to pay them back 24,750 at 6% interest rate here, and the doubling time for that money, you know, the rule of 72 for the banks is the algorithm of 72, and then divided by the 6% interest rate, then that would turn out the amount to be $49,801.86. Okay, so that is the amount that I would actually pay them in helping them doubling their money within that time frame, within that time period, and that time period is 12 years. You know, so these are the things which snares a lot of people who purchase things on a who purchase expensive things or things with a high price tag, and if the right amount of interest rate is applied, then they're in for a big kill. And you know, the lower the interest rate, the longer the time period it would be required for you to pay off the amount. All right, so the doubling period, the doubling of time of the money would be longer in terms of years, but the shorter the interest rate is, then the smaller the number is. Let's say the number goes to from 6 to 5 or 4, then it becomes the shorter the number of years that you would have to pay off the amount that you owe them, in terms of the doubling potential of what they would get from you, you know, of the amount they lend you. It will double the amount which the credit agency had paid for you. So it's not good to borrow money, period. Alright, it's only good to borrow money to do whatever you're doing, as long as what you're doing it has a productive capacity to do it, and that you had previously, before you borrow that money, you can afford to make those payments, provided that you have a previous and continuing consistent cash flow from a asset that is generating that cash flow for you. Could be real estate, somewhere you rent, and it provides you with a sufficient amount of cash, so that when time the expense come for the loan, you can simply make a deduction from that income of your real estate, or whatever the business is, or whatever the services you're doing on part-time or full-time, and then it can help you reduce the amount that you owe. Alright, and as for persons otherwise who can actually pay it outright, they just pay off the entire thing to the school and just continue on with the thing and just finish it off, and that's it for them. But as for persons who can afford to pay off that amount, then they will be in for the long grind of signing on a commitment form that they agree to the terms and condition of the loan, and that they will pay it back according to what is stipulated in the agreement, and then that will be binding upon you for you to do so. For if you don't, then they perhaps, if they have something written in the clause of the agreement where they can, you know, seize any assets of yours to sell it and pay out the loan, and they can seem to enforce such a thing in a court of law, had you not read it properly and then sign to it, you know, then you'll probably, you know, in for the shock of your life if such a clause is already in the contractual terms of the agreement of what the school would have to sign to, you know. So therefore you have to look and read those things before you go ahead and proceed to sign. So luckily I have some common sense, you know, and I have a whittling room which which is an excuse which I told him I have to pick up my mother, which was a lie. I had to say it so that I can escape from out of their building and just leave and have more time to think about it, instead of just run headlong and sign just like that because I needed a paper, because I can't get a job if I don't have this paper. That, you know, I don't so have my life to be governed the way the mainstream have it, because basically put, the people at the top is really the Jews are the top of the financial order, and they basically see everybody as cattle in the world, somebody to be pushed around, somebody to be driven here and there, whichever their bidding and their call would have them to do, you know. So therefore, you know, these things are parlay into a financial amount. And not only the Jews that do these things, but people who are Gentiles and people who are black, people who are Chinese, people who are Indian, and people who are Japanese. And there are all different types of people on the face of the earth by different nationalities and different cultures, which, if they should, in the world of money and been lending money, and they have proper education of buying and selling and interest rates and usury, then when they apply the banker rule of 72 for the doubling period of money, they just simply apply the right interest rate to the amount that they're lending, and then they can shorten the doubling time of their money. Okay, so that is how they do it in the world of finances, and people have to be wise as to their doing, so that you don't easily be taken for a ride and put yourself in such a financial mess as that when you go through bankruptcy, then the bankruptcy courts will look into what you have as assets, and they have a fixed amount that they said you should have as an asset. Let's say it is $6,000, but if you have assets valued over $6,000, then those perhaps will be sold off, and $6,000 from your total asset value would be given to you, and the rest would be applied to those creditors to whom you owe money. So you have to be careful when you're filing for bankruptcy. You do not get away with things these days, because the bankers or the financial money changers are keep lobbying Congress and paying off congressmen and senators to change the laws in their favor. Alright, and never forget that these laws are not the 10 commandments. These laws are laws which are man-made commandments, and they are laws of unrighteousness. Alright, so people be wise who are college students today, and people who are aspiring to become university students today, to learn whatever you choose of your choice to become someone in society that you can help yourself and help your children. But when you begin to apply a financial equivalent to your life in terms of borrowing money or tuition or grant or something of that sort to go to school, remember our interest rate always applied, and that the grants that the government may give you that may be appear outwardly to be free, it's not in essence free, because eventually the Federal Reserve is a privately owned bank and it lends money to the US government at interest. So therefore, if the government gives you a grant, how is that money being paid back by the government? The government is just a mediator to transfer wealth from the poor to the rich. That's what the government is. That's what they simply are. And the members of Congress also transfer some of those wealth to themselves, because no single member of Congress has no power over the entire echelon of government. So therefore they too have to be corrupted and do what they have to do to enrich themselves, and that they do not live their lives poor and full of misery on a financial level in this life, and that if they die out of this life and they drop out, they basically can leave something to their sons and their daughters as an inheritance, so that their daughters and their sons do not come to be suffering in a financial debauchery. Alright, so therefore I just educate persons who are interested in taking out a loan in terms of if you go into a training center, let's say for instance like ATI here, and you go to the financial assistance program, and then they bring it to admission, which is here, and then when you're inside talking to the girl or to the male, they will ask you to you can go on FAFSA. FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it allows a persons to apply to the government and to put in the required fields necessary for them to be qualified for a loan. These are called free money, but they are not necessarily free money, because when you leave school, alright, you have to get a job, and you have to pay tax out of that job, out of that income which you get, and that is how these things are paid back to the Federal Reserve. So in essence, the Federal Reserve get paid back on a whole from the total nation of people that are employed and are working. And then again, there's another catch to this thing too. If you take their loan from the FAFSA, the government's website, what happens is that if you do not go through with the education to its completeness, and you pass and get a certificate, then you'll be forced to pay it back. Of something of that sort I have heard with grants, so you have to be careful when you're actually entrailing these things in your life. So you have to be careful not to be taken and be deceived, because the Congress deceive us. They deceive their own people. They lie to them. The Federal Reserve lied to Congress, and they lie to everybody. The banks lie, the creditors are gonna lend you money lie, the school lied, so everybody lied. So in all these things, it tells you that you should use common sense, and you must question authority and question them. If they cannot give you the correct answer and make those answers forthcoming to your satisfaction, let them kiss your ass and go to hell, and you just turn 180 degrees out of their place and go home. Alright, and don't become no sucker for them. All right, always question authority. Always question authority, and do not be suckered by them. All right, I just hope this tutorial and this exercise prove helpful to some persons out there in the world, and they can be wise as to what they call the banker's rule of 72. All right, so let us type in something here so that persons can actually know what they call the banker's rule of 72. I can go on a YouTube video and show persons what the principle is all about, for persons there who actually expose this thing. All right, so all right, let us go on this person's thing here, the rule of 72 and what banks do not want you to know. All right, let's open it and let's see what these persons has to say here.